Take my lips and speak through them. Take our ears and hear through them. Take our hearts and set them on fire with love for thee. May I speak in the name of the living God.
Amen.
As a child, I loved being with God. Just being with Jesus, whom the liturgy in Rite 1 so perfectly calls the blessed company of all faithful people. That made such deep sense to me. If you asked me what I thought I was doing when I prayed with words, I think I might have told you that I was telling God something that I thought God should know so that God would stop whatever God was doing and help. If I drew a picture of it, it would be like me, this small circle down here, trying to reach this big circle, God, up here. But now, I think the opposite is happening. Now, when I move to pray, I feel like the impetus is coming from God. That it's God who has caught my attention. It's God who's enlisting me in this cause or this concern, not the other way around. And if I had to draw a picture of how prayer seems to be now, I think it would look like a big circle, God, in which there's a little circle, me, and the arrows aimed at me as God all around me is trying to awaken me to God's presence and invite me into God's purpose. I bring this up because prayer is one of the hallmarks of Lent. Prayer, fasting, and self-denial. And I know, being a person, how easily Lent becomes about us. You know, our effort, our drive, our discipline and devotion, or, lack thereof. Prayer can feel like one more thing we should be doing. But what if we have it backwards? What if prayer isn't something we do? What if prayer is something we respond to? Not a relationship we're responsible for starting, but a relationship that God starts, a relationship to which we respond, like Moses responded to God at the burning bush. What if instead of putting prayer on our to-do list, we wrote, "Be on the lookout for a burning bush"? Here was Moses, living his life in Midian. It was not exactly what he thought life would be when he started out. Now, when Moses was born, Pharaoh was in the process of trying to kill all the Israelite baby boys because he thought the Israelites were growing too numerous and becoming a threat. Moses had been miraculously saved by the quick thinking of his mother and ended up being adopted by Pharaoh's daughter, who had taken pity on him when she found him in his basket of bulrushes at the water's edge. But it had all gone bad when Moses killed an Egyptian who'd been beating a Hebrew slave. Moses had buried the dead man in the sand and thought he got away with it. But the next day, when he tried to stop a fight between two Hebrew slaves, the one at fault had taken him on. "What are you going to do? Kill me like you did that Egyptian?" Moses panicked and ran. Pharaoh heard about it and came after him. But Moses had fled to Midian, where he remained through the death of that Pharaoh and the rise of another. Moses had married one of the daughters of Jethro, the priest of Midian. And today, we find him doing what he apparently always did, leading his father-in-law's flocks to Mount Horeb, also known as Mount Sinai, on an apparently ordinary workday. There, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of a bush. He looked, and the bush was blazing, yet it was not consumed. Then Moses said, I must turn aside and look at this great sight, why the bush is not burned up. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush. This extraordinary story is not unlike the experience of prayer. Our hearts are moved by something or someone. It could be something we've read about or some need, or maybe it's some creative possibility where we could offer our gifts, but something catches our imagination, our heart, our attention. What do? Sometimes we turn to see if there might be something for us there. But often, instead of drawing closer, we shake it off and go on, with business as usual, as if nothing happened. Our lives are pretty full as it is. But here's the thing. A burning bush is only revealed as the presence of God when we, like Moses, turn aside to see. It's only when the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see that the Lord called to him out of the bush. Moses, Moses, and he said, here I am. And God said, come no closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you're standing is holy ground. This is so striking because we so often think that the place to find holiness is someplace other than the place where we are. But God says the place on which you're standing right now is holy ground. We don't need to go someplace else or do something else to find God, to find the holy. The ground on which we stand is holy ground. Wherever we are, God is. It may be at work. It may be at home or at school. It may be hard or soft or strewn with toys. It may feel cold or wet or empty. It is holy ground. God calls us this Lent to become aware, to take off our shoes, to get rid of what makes us insensitive to that ground, unable to feel its holiness. God calls us to turn aside from business as usual, to look and to listen for what is there for us, for God who calls us. When Moses turns aside to see, God reveals himself to Moses as the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, the God who has a mission for him, to go to Pharaoh, to bring God's people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. And Moses answers, but why me? Who am I that I should go? Who am I that I should go and do whatever needs to be gone and done? Who am I that this should be happening to me? If that's what we find ourselves saying, we are in good company. I will be with you, God says to Moses and to us. I will be with you. But who shall I say sent me? Asks Moses. And God says, tell them, I am sent you. I am who I am. I am has sent you. I am who is with you. I am who is enough. I am sending you. I am sending you to Pharaoh to tell him to let my people go. And the rest truly is history. Notice that this prayer experience, this experience of relationship, doesn't stay between God and Moses. It leads Moses back out into the world from which he fled and to which he is yet called. God seeks partners in the redemption of the world. God seeks partners in love and care and justice. I read a poem this past week by an early 20th century Spanish poet named Antonio Machado, who wrote, "Beyond living and dreaming, there is something more important: waking up." God seeks to wake people up to the presence of God, to the purposes of God, to partnership with God in the power of God. God woke Moses up. God sends fires that burn but do not consume into our lives. Often very small fires, stirring so small that we could turn away. Stirring so compelling that we could turn toward them and change everything. We could wake up to our times, to our gifts, to our call, to the discovery that we stand on holy ground, to the realization that though nothing we can do changes the past, everything we do changes the future. So what are we waiting for? This Lent, instead of putting prayer on our to-do list, let's put respond to wonder. Pay attention to connection. What if we committed to noting what draws our hearts and our minds and our attention? Committed to waking up to the more that is always around us. Who knows what may be a burning bush for us? Who knows how God may be calling to us? We won't know unless we turn aside to look. This is the practice of prayer, saints. Quietly turning toward the presence of God, gently, alertly, as life unfolds. It may just be that God will see we've turned aside to see and will call to us out of the bush. Amen.